Hello there, my crypto big brothers and sisters. This here is Bulldog Rod, and over here is Papa Ron is in the house.
I'm here.
Yes, you are, and it's good to see you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
it's
good to
a
be here.
beautiful day today. Ice cold outside.
Yeah, ice cold, but the warmth comes from BTC hitting 20 grand last night, I think.
Ooh, almost.
Skirting
Yeah,
around it somewhere.
yeah. It got up really high last week or
Yeah, very
last night.
nice.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy yesterday at work, Ron, and he said, I said, well, when are you going to get into Bitcoin? He says, man, Bitcoin's going down $400 a minute, so I'm not going to get into it. And I went, what the heck does that have to do with anything, man? I ain't going to do that. I said, you hadn't looked at the market cap, some young kid, you know.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, you do what you want to, and then next year you're going to be crying, oh, I wish I would have invested.
Yeah. I think a lot of them will be crying the blues.
It sure will be, I tell you. This is going to be awesome.
Well, we got a really big shoe tonight.
Yes, we do.
But before we bring on Mr. Node, there's a couple things I want to, just some things that I just feel I have to mention.
Yes, you do. You always have to mention.
And one is this Duchesne Bank executive. Bitcoin isn't going anywhere. It just frosts my butt, when you hear these types of things. He's a big shot banker and all that, but, what does he know? Let me just read a line or two of this.
Yeah, read it.
He was speaking at a global market outlook breakfast in Manhattan on Tuesday. He's the economist at Germany's largest bank. He said to Bloomberg that the digital currency was here to stay, adding, "The whole idea has a potential future, but it could be better designed. Ultimately, we are going to have to find a way to accommodate and regulate to avoid the problems." Now, what the hell does he know about blockchain or peer-to-peer finance? Any of that? These guys just shoot off the cuff, and because they have a position, they just think that their opinion is so valuable. Anyway, sorry, folks. When I see those things, it just makes... And I don't know anything. I know this guy's well-educated. I've never been to college. But anyway, they just talk. Well, let's move on.
You have. Yeah, you've been to college, Ron. Man.
I've taken some night classes. Well, the course I just finished is World's Religions, kind of learning about the Muslims and the Jews, and it's been a real fun class, real interesting. But yeah, I kind of take a class a semester, just thinking around with it. But we keep talking about bubbles, right? Some of these financial guys keep saying everything's in a bubble. And then there was this article here. And I read about this. If art isn't in a bubble, why maybe Bitcoin isn't either? Now, this isn't the article I read earlier, but what I read about was this right here. That a Leonardo da Vinci painting sold for $450 million.
Wow.
And when I read that, and that was about a week ago, that sold at an auction for that, I thought, $450 million for a painting. And anyway, this article kind of pokes fun at it a little bit and says, well, come on. If idiots are spending that kind of money on art, don't tell me that Bitcoin's in a bubble at 19 or 20,000. Anyway, kind of fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
But we have a gentleman coming on.
Yes, we do.
And why can't I get that where I want it? But
I don't know.
He's called folks the Node Investor. We've had him on the show. God, what, Rod? 4 times maybe?
Yeah.
And we've had the fortune. Go ahead.
I was going to say he's been very, very interesting.
It's been a while since we've had him, but we've had the privilege, folks, of being able to call him on tokens and coins occasionally to get his personal intake on advice for us. So it's been nice to have that connection a little bit. But anyway, I want to kind of tell you a little bit about him. This is his website. It's nodeinvestor.com, and of course he's got the tickers on here and all. But he writes an article all the time, and he even has courses that you can sign up to learn how to do basic trading of these. And the thing that I've really enjoyed from him, though, is he has a this is his Twitter, and I have his Twitter, and he honestly once, twice a week he sends you little things, movements, and gives you his opinion. And so he's got a great little Twitter thing. This is his Twitter, isn't it, Rod? Yeah, here's his Facebook. He's got a Facebook account, and of course his YouTube. And his YouTube, he I think he puts a video up pretty regular and goes over coins and what they're doing. It's well worth checking into. He's a great guy, very calm-mannered, and he explains it slowly and accurately. I mean, you understand what he's saying when he gets done.
Yeah, you do. He explains what a candle is and what those little lines are on the candle, and red or green, and he's really educated me on that stuff.
Yeah, we've had fun with him in the past. So anyway, without that, let's we'll bring him on, and we've got few questions that we've been thinking about lately, and so with that, Rod, we'll get him online, huh?
Well, let's do it to it like Sonny Pruitt. Hey there. We're on live, or not live, but we're here with the Mr. Node Investor. He's been gracious enough to make sure to come online, tell us a little about his charts and stuff. And before we get started, though, I didn't tell you to make sure to hit us a thumbs up and also get on Mr. Node's websites and YouTubes and his Twitter and Facebook and
his Twitter. Get on his Twitter account. You'll love it.
I couldn't remember what it was.
You are showing your age, brother.
When you get past 60, I mean 70. Hell, I can't even remember my age. I try to forget it, in fact. Anyway, we're here with Mr. Node Investor, and can I ask you something, Mr.? Hey, I want to tell you, welcome to our show.
Hey, what's up, my crypto bit brothers?
Love you, man.
It's been a while talking with you guys, and it's always fun to talk with you. You guys are so much fun, and you love to laugh.
Yeah, we have fun, I tell you, and we like you too, because you're just so knowledgeable on your stuff. I tell you, you got your shit together. I'm going to tell you that.
I appreciate that.
Now, Mr. Node, we just saw a screen there, and I think we did mention earlier that you do have your courses. Is that what that technical analysis screen we just had on there?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of video courses that I offer. One is a cryptocurrency 101 for those just getting started, how to buy Bitcoin and use wallets and exchanges and all that fun stuff. And then a technical analysis course, which is predominantly my my videos, right, where I cover the charts and talk about the patterns and the breakouts and all that fun stuff, and more for the trading and the investing side of things.
But you're so reasonably priced on them, too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I try to keep it in line with, so that's not really prohibitive for anybody. I mean, it's $49. You get about 4 hours of video, 4.5 hours of video, and it's a good jump start, right? You probably spend that on a good book and learn it that way too, but this is just real quick and easy, and people like the video format.
Very nice.
Yeah. For me, I like it because I learn more by seeing than I do reading.
You and me both.
Well, I'm getting so blind now. Hell, I have a hard time reading sometimes. And plus my age, I start reading, guess what? I fall asleep. Hey, well, we got you on, and I know you cover it in your technical training, but can you kind of go over what the candles are on a
Absolutely.
chart?
And,
Just
and
real
so,
quick.
these charts at first glance sometimes are intimidating for people that are not, kind of new to it or not used to seeing them this way. And there's different ways to do it. But at the end of the day, all this is telling you is just for this period of time, this is what the price range was. And so the bottom is on a green candle, the bottom is the open price and the top is the close. And on the red candle, it's the other way around. It closed higher than or it opened higher than it closed. And so generally I use a handful of things on a chart. I'll use the candles, which will just tell me the price action. And then I'll use the volume indicators here at the bottom, which tells you, how much volume came in during that period.
Oh,
And then I'll mix in some other things, some moving averages or, some RSI signals or MACD signals. And, there's really hundreds of indicators you can get into, but I always tell people just kind of keep it simple, right? It's amazing what you can do with just price and volume.
yeah.
Hey, Mr. Node, what about those sticks, the wicks coming out of the candles?
Yeah, so that's the price range, right? So like if you look at this particular candle here, right, you can see where it has this little wick at the top. That means the price went, as high as, what does that equal on this chart? About 18,866 and as low as 18,331. But the open and the close were this bar. And there's another way to look at it. If you look at a bar chart, right, that's the whole price range for that candle.
Oh,
And so it's just a different way to view it. The candles are just a little bit little easier to digest, I guess, than some of those bars.
Well, thank you. And we've had you on several times, and we've always tried to go with these long shot coins. But today with what's going on with Bitcoin and Litecoin and stuff, we'd like to probably start with the main three and kind of get your opinion where they're headed, maybe long term, and how things are looking for you. So you just take it from there, and we'll interrupt you if we need to.
Okay, so let's take a look at the big picture, right? The daily chart of Bitcoin, which is the majority of the market right now. I mean, Bitcoin, it's amazing, guys. When you think about over $300 billion market cap on Bitcoin, the total crypto space is 600 billion, right? The $1 trillion market cap is suddenly like not that far fetched.
no, it is not.
And so looking at the big picture of Bitcoin, I think the last time I was on here with you guys, we were maybe in the 1 to 2,000 range. I don't think we had broken 3 yet. And so, it's been quite the ride here. In the last couple of months, we're seeing this kind of go almost parabolic, right? Where it started to really accelerate in price here recently in the last couple of weeks. It was like, once we broke through 10K, it was just a blink, right? Next thing you know, it's 11, 12, 13, 15. And so here in the last couple of week or so, we've had this nice little pause, and you can see where Bitcoin was kind of put in this little bit of a base, right? A little ascending triangle pattern. And the volume was really starting to come down on that pattern, which is exactly what you want to see. It's bullish. And here in the last couple of days, we're breaking out, starting to make new highs. 20,000 is certainly right around the corner here. We're just basically a few percent away from that. And I think we're going to probably see early, the low 20s if this pattern continues to break out and project the way I think it does. And so the big picture is, though, what I've been telling everybody is it overheated, right? Are we starting to reach that bubble territory that everybody's talking about? And, it's good and bad, right? Because if we do see that kind of a scenario where you see a climactic, blow off top, we think this move from 10 to 15 was huge. In that kind of scenario, you're going to see $5,000 days, probably a couple days in a row, right? So it gets very interesting if you have that climactic run like we saw in 2013 when Bitcoin just had this huge run. Not saying that's going to happen, and honestly, it'd be healthier if it didn't, if it just kind of did these stair-step moves and just kept going up this way, because then it's a little more sustainable. But we have futures coming around the corner. There's going to be launching the CME futures tomorrow, and that's going to be a big deal. The CBOE futures were pretty exciting because it was the first Bitcoin futures, but the CME market is just so much larger, and there's going to be much more volume and contracts there, and that's going to be interesting to see how that really starts to affect the sentiment in the market. And it's good and bad, right? People are saying, well, there'll be price manipulation, and do we get into this scenario where now the futures forecasts start driving the price of Bitcoin versus the other way around? And those are some valid concerns. But it's just going to bring more attention to Bitcoin, institutional money, And long term, it's a bullish thing for Bitcoin to have the big money crowd and mutual funds and ETFs coming and all that stuff looking at cryptocurrency. Because up to now, like most of the Wall Street and people who have been so bearish on crypto are just realizing, hey, we missed the boat here, right? Like this thing is taking off, and now everybody wants part of the action. And so long term, I think the futures and an ETF potentially and all that's going to just be very bullish. You have companies like Coinbase that have strong ties to Wall Street and to some of the big institutions, and they're just going to continue to be that on-ramp to cryptocurrency, and they're going to start adding coins, right? So right now they have the big three. There's a lot of speculation around, hey, what's coming in January? What other coins are they going to add? I think Bitcoin Cash is probably a no-brainer. There's a lot of rumors about maybe Ripple or maybe Dash. And so who knows, right? I mean, there's going to be coins that are added, and they're most likely going to be top market cap coins, right? I really doubt they would add like a $200 million market cap coin at this point, right? It has to be pretty liquid to sustain on their exchange.
Sure. Well, and I agree that it's going to add some value, all these ETFs and everything that are coming, but everything it seems like the financial world touches, it ends up being manipulated some way, and we just hate to see something like that take place.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's the big fear, right? Because the origins of Bitcoin were so decentralized, right? And that's what we all loved about it. There was no Fed in this, and there was, the big banks couldn't touch this, and now like it's becoming their world, right?
Yeah.
Crypto, and that was inevitable. I mean, it's just such a lucrative market. It's hundreds of billions of dollars worth of market cap, and absolutely everybody wants a piece of the pie. Sure. And I think the next big step is going to be the exchanges, right? There's probably going to be a big push to really do more regulation and more of that. As much as I hate to see that, that's probably going to be the next big push because exchanges are just they're very profitable with all the volatility in cryptocurrency.
Okay, so where do you see Bitcoin headed then? Still on this projection?
We just broke out, right? And so looking at the chart, there's a way to do like what they call technical measurements where you can say, here's this ascending triangle pattern. If we extrapolate out the measurement on this move, just doing that simple kind of measurement. And it's never a hard, fast rule. It's always kind of just here's a ballpark type of thing to give you an idea, right? And, and one way to do that, looking at this chart, I did this a couple of days ago and I was projecting out, this 23, maybe 24K level based on this breakout at around 18, 19K. And so that's maybe in the cards here this next week or so, $23,000 if we get a big pop. The big question is everyone is kind of wondering what CME futures is going to do. Do we have a big pop and then the big sell-off? And that's been a concern because the CME futures are going to allow for short selling. Right. And so now there's going to be a way to make a lot of profit if the price of Bitcoin really starts to take a hit. And, some of the big crowd, the big money is going to be able to short the heck out of that thing. But right now, this pattern is just very bullish and it looks very strong. And that's where it's projecting out. Now, beyond that, it's anybody's guess. If this thing goes parabolic and decides to have one of those big moves, who knows, right? Maybe we see a 3 in the front of that number. I don't know. I mean, it'd be anybody's guess at that point.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the thing that's on fire right now on YouTube and everywhere else is Litecoin. Everybody's projecting that thing is just positioned to take off. So yeah, let's go through Litecoin.
So Litecoin has given us a number of opportunities to jump on this thing. The last biggie was, we had Litecoin had that big rally. I was talking about it, breaking out down here, this little cup and handle it put right around that $64 mark. Now that just looks so tiny when you compare it, right? It looked like this at the time. I was going, all right, Litecoin's looking good. Hey, maybe we'll hit $80 and test the old highs and up to $90. And then it blew right through that. And then we had that big run. And then the second opportunity it gave us was when it paused right around that $100 mark. And then it started to kind of take a little bit of a hit when Bitcoin sold off, but then it just broke out. And had that big move, and then it just ran, and it was just an incredible run. I think far exceeded anybody's even wildest projections, right? To see $400 Litecoin on GDAX, 300 on most other exchanges was just an amazing run.
I know. Well,
But
what
it
is that?
needed to,
I'm
because
sorry to
the thing
interrupt.
no, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, you finish what you're saying, but I've noticed, and as you're going back and forth, the volume jumps up tremendously too. Is that an indicator of anything besides pushing it up right then?
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The volume is just so bullish, just a ton of buying coming in. And the reason is, I mean, Bitcoin had a huge run, right? In October and most of November, Bitcoin was just the place to be, and every altcoin just underperformed significantly. And if you look at the BTC charts, right, they're all going south, and that started to turn here. And my belief is Bitcoin just had such a strong dominance market cap wise that it was just a matter of time before some of that money moved out of Bitcoin into some of these very undervalued altcoins relative to Bitcoin. And that's what we saw, right? Before this big breakout, even at $100 Litecoin, it was only like 3% of the market cap of Bitcoin. And for being one of the big three and having such the exposure that it has, like on Coinbase and all that, and I was telling people that that's going to happen, guys. Like, I didn't think it happened this quick, but I told everybody, I said, this is going to happen. You're going to see people buying Bitcoin, and then they're going to say, oh, what's this Ethereum and what's this Litecoin? And Litecoin's only $100. I'm going to go buy this thing. And some of that money's going to start to move in. And sure enough, that's what happened. Bitcoin reached a little bit of a temporary top where around 17,000, and it paused there for a few days. And then once that pause started, just tons of money came out of Bitcoin and into Litecoin, Ethereum, Cardano, EOS. I mean, you just started seeing it hit all the other names, right? And so I think it was just a big kind of reallocation of Bitcoin into some of these undervalued coins.
Do you see continuation for Litecoin then to keep projecting upward into next year?
I do, just because it's had a huge run, but it's still only, what, 12, 15 billion-dollar market cap compared to Bitcoin's 300 plus billion, right? Ethereum's 70 or whatever it is. I haven't checked here in a couple of days, but it's still tiny, relatively speaking, but it's had a good run. Maybe we see another couple $100 added to this. It looks like it's setting up right now, right? It had that huge run. It's just been digesting this move here and consolidating very nicely. And here just today, it looks like it wants to try to start edging out of that. If you look at the way it looks on some of the other exchanges, it's even tighter of a pattern, and it's already starting to break out, right? So we're already starting to get above that $300 mark again. And this is kind of projecting out to the $400 range or so.
Okay, I don't want to regress here, but you mentioned something that I think might be important for our viewers to know. Can you go over to CoinMarketCap? You got that tab pulled up? You mentioned
Pop that over here.
You mentioned BTC charts.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to click onto that and kind of explain the difference.
Absolutely. That's a good question. So, in the last couple of months, right, everybody's been watching the price of Bitcoin just go through the roof. And if you looked at the USD price or the fiat value price, whether that's euro or however you want to look at that, most of the altcoins were also going up. But if you looked at them in terms of Bitcoin, they were dropping in value. And so, like, if you go to CoinMarketCap, there's this little tab where you can switch the denomination of how the coins are, or the values here. And it defaults to USD, but you can also make it to BTC. And here, this changes the picture, right? So the percent change for the hour, you can see Ripple is actually down 3% versus Bitcoin. Cardano is up 34%, right? Stellar up 21. So it just changes the way the picture views. And
comparing it to Bitcoin and not US dollars or another fiat.
Right. And so that's important because at the end of the day, if you're investing in cryptocurrency, the question is always, are you better off just holding Bitcoin, or should you flip out of Bitcoin into some of the other coins and try to outperform Bitcoin, right? Because if you believe Bitcoin is going up, but one of the other coins is going to go up even faster, then you're better off holding the other coin, right? So, and that just kind of cycles back and forth between the two. Sometimes Bitcoin is the place to be, and then other times it pauses and the altcoins are the place to be. And with the goal being you net more Bitcoin at the end of the day.
True. Very good. Thanks for doing that.
And the chart just looks so different. Like, here's the USD chart of Litecoin, right? This is versus the US dollar for the last, since October or September, right? It just looks beautiful, right? It's just marching up high. But if you look at that same chart versus Bitcoin, it's a different story, right?
Oh my heck.
Since September, right, all the way down to, basically this month, you were better off just holding Bitcoin because Bitcoin was outperforming Litecoin by a huge margin. I mean, from September down to where this thing bottomed out, you would have lost 68% of your Bitcoin value if you would have just held Litecoin. But eventually they just got so oversold versus Bitcoin. There was a snapback, and we're starting to see that, right, with Ripple, with Ethereum, and all that. So while the fiat value may have held up nicely because Bitcoin was kind of the buoy keeping everything up, you missed out on value if you were just only in altcoins. But that's starting to reverse here in the last couple of weeks.
Okay, where do you see Ethereum?
So let's take a look at Ethereum. I've been watching, this one today too. It's just really been strong, trying to settle out after that big run it had. So Ethereum versus USD, it gave us a couple of stair-step moves, right? It had that nice little breakout over 300, which ran basically to 475 or so. Then it paused for a little while. Litecoin was doing its thing, and then it was Ethereum's turn again. It broke out over $500, and pretty much just ran straight up to $600-700, depending on the exchange, and has been sitting tight for the last 4 days. And just today now it's starting to break out again, and it still looks very strong. I really like Ethereum. The big three, all of them just look really good right now.
Mr. Node, the volume though in that looks more consistent.
Yeah, it's not as big as we saw like on the breakout with Litecoin, and the percent move here is not as big either. But that's just because Litecoin was, before it broke out, was a $6 billion market cap, right? Ethereum was already in the tens of billions, and so the amount of money it takes to move one of these is a lot larger.
Oh, good point.
So you can see this is still in 3 days 60% move.
Wow.
That's significant for something that's such a large market cap.
Yeah.
And and the volume is definitely well above average, so still good volume.
All right, so your opinion then on the top three, at least we call them the top three, is that they're probably safe going into 2018 to show good returns and something that people could get into and be safe and just hold those without trying to trade in and out of them or any of that.
I think the top three are going to be still remaining in the top, right? They're going to be at the top of the list for some time to come, right? Regardless of what crypto does. If Bitcoin decides to pull in, if it goes parabolic, right? I think Ethereum's not going to go anywhere. There's a lot of competition for Ethereum coming, but I think Litecoin's going to stick around, and Bitcoin obviously, and just because they're just they're becoming the more established names. They've got the big network effect. You can pretty much get those three on almost any exchange. Yeah. And so they're very accessible, and they're kind of become the face of cryptocurrency here.
Very
so
cool.
Longer term, I'm still holding them, and I've always maintained a core position in the top three. That's always been kind of my long-term portfolio has always contained those three.
Okay. You mentioned that Cardano. I mean, where the heck did this thing come from?
Yeah, so Cardano is a really good project, and it's really kind of trying to rival Ethereum, right? And so we had a huge run in Cardano, and this has been a beautiful run. Probably the most profitable trade that I've done here recently, just because it had this crazy run, and we thought this run here a couple weeks back was big, and it gave up most of that move, and here just really settled out and gave you a good secondary entry and just exploded. And just climbed up that market cap list very quickly. And so Cardano is also a platform project, and they're trying to solve some problems that Ethereum lacks in, right? Some scalability issues and speed. The cost of Ethereum, right, is based on...
I can solve that speed thing. Just get out of those crypto kitties. That'll put them right back on course.
Oh man, isn't it funny how just like something so comical can just disrupt the blockchain?
Oh, and become so popular and profitable. They say people are making good money with those things. Anyway,
like, where's the crypto bit kitty?
Yeah,
that thing's got to be worth a ton of money.
Oh, it's crazy. And I'm sure a lot of the South Korea and Japan are way into that stuff. It seems like Asians like that novelty stuff more so than Americans. Of course, I don't know. We had that pet rock go through our country years ago. What? I don't know. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
So Cardano, right? The founder, one of the original people on the team there is, he worked on the Ethereum project at its beginnings. And so very strong team, very knowledgeable when it comes to crypto, when it comes to blockchain, trying to solve some of the scalability issues and create a new way. So it's a little bit cheaper, right? You don't have the whole gas like you do on Ethereum, where it's proof of work. Now, I know Ethereum's trying to switch over to some proof of stake and some of that, and they certainly have their things in mind that are going to solve their current issues. So it's not like Ethereum's going to just sit by and let other platforms come take their spot. But this one is certainly one to keep an eye on. I think if they continue to develop and do what they're saying they're doing, it's going to be one of the leaders, right? And it's maybe will rival Ethereum. Will anything ever replace Ethereum? Who knows? And honestly, I doubt it. But it could be one of the biggies, right? And so I'd keep an eye on it.
Okay, so looking at those candles there and the volume below, what does that indicate to you as what might be coming next? I mean, can you project that out for a month or a couple weeks or what?
It's very extended right now. There's no doubt about that. This thing has had a tremendous run here in the couple of days even, right? And at this point, you're kind of in blue sky territory. It's really hard to project this out at this point just because it broke out. And once you're in new high territory, there's really no telling how high this goes. And we saw that in the last 2 days. It was like, okay, it's too high, it's too high, it's too high. And it just keeps going. And you can see this thing went up once it broke out from the old highs. And really the breakout was down here, right? This is where I was talking about it in my last video was, hey, this might be a breakout, one to keep an eye on. And then once it broke out, it gave you a good secondary entry here a couple days ago. It looks really tiny now, but let me zoom in there. And there was this very symmetrical equilibrium pattern forming on this guy here. And I'm trying to scale it so it looks normal. But it was right here, right? And so I had that huge run, and then it paused, and it just started to really tighten up, and you can see the highs started to get lower at the top, and the lows started to get higher at the bottom, and it just kind of went sideways for a little while. And this is typically one of those next move wins pattern. Let me move this here out of the way, sorry. And that's exactly what happened. It was kind of, which way is this thing going to go? And I noticed there was this huge sell wall keeping the prices from running up too high. And generally that just means someone is trying to contain it before it really starts to run. And that's what happened, right? It started to once it broke out, it started to take off, and you can see we broke out here, and then we had a pretty good run, and then paused for a little bit, and then just yesterday was just pausing and running, pausing and running. Right now it's pausing a little bit, which is good. It finally needed to. And so just like we saw in Ripple, just like we saw in some of these other big runs, IOTA a couple weeks ago, they eventually reach a point where it just needs to consolidate, right? It was kind of a huge run, maybe too far, too fast type of thing. And now it's just due for a pause. And I'm thinking Cardano's fitting that bill now. Just yesterday was just tremendous. And I don't think it's just going to collapse by any means, right? But I think it's probably due for a little bit of consolidation.
So that consolidation, would that refer to maybe people selling and taking profits and some of that?
Yeah, you got the traders, they're always taking profits, right? And then you've got the long-term buyers that they see the dips and they come in and they start supporting the prices when it comes down a little bit. So eventually there's this price discovery where you kind of find this equilibrium, and then things settle out, and then eventually the sellers run out, and then the new buyers start coming in and the prices start going up. The thing that can change that, of course, is Bitcoin. And with all of these altcoins, Bitcoin's going to set the tone, right? And so what we've seen here in recent weeks is Bitcoin starts to rally big. The altcoins sell off a little bit as everybody kind of panics back into Bitcoin. And then when it pauses, altcoins boom. But if Bitcoin really takes a hit and starts to sell off hard, then the altcoins also do, right? So you don't want Bitcoin to crash because eventually it will spill over into most of the altcoins. Not every name. There's always the exceptions, but generally speaking.
So that's a good point. If Bitcoin goes up, obviously, in some of these altcoins are priced in Satoshis. So as that Satoshi increases in value with Bitcoin, does it just naturally affect the price of Satoshi then in these alts too? I guess it would.
Right. Yeah. So that's the whole USD chart versus the BTC chart. You might look at the dollar value of Cardano and say it's still going up, but if you look at the BTC chart, it might be going down because Bitcoin's outperforming it.
Okay. And again, thank you. I appreciate you being with us. You mentioned another term that I would like some explanation on, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers would, and that's on a sell wall. Do you have something you can pull up that shows a good sell wall, or
let's see here.
The green versus the red? And
sometimes you can see them on here. Let me see. I think you can do I know you can.
I've seen some of those exchanges where you can actually see it. Yeah. It looks like a wave and...
Yeah, and so you can kind of see the histogram here. I don't have my settings set up correctly.
I'm sorry to throw this on you.
But, on GDAX and stuff, like if you pulled up the exchange, you can see the sell wall and the buy walls. It's real easy to see, like on Cardano, for example, yesterday, right, when the price was trying to break out, right here at 1,200, where was that? Down here before this big breakout, you can see it could never get above 1,200. And if you looked out on Bittrex, say you try to put an order on it, you can see on the sell side, they show you the order book, the buy order and the sell order. And very rarely do I ever trade on that. It's just not a strategy because it's very easy to manipulate prices with buy walls and sell walls. But when they're just that outrageous, you kind of have to look at it and go, what's going on here, right? And at that particular time, there was 150 Bitcoin equivalent sell wall. And so someone had 150 BTC worth of Cardano, and you're talking that's millions of dollars. And they threw the sell order out there at 1,200 just to advertise to everybody that, hey, this is here, and the price is not going to go up until, one, you buy 150 BTC worth of this stuff, or I take the sell wall down. And so, yeah, and it finally went away, and then it popped, and then you looked at the order book, and it was the same 140 BTC wall at 1,300, and it was just containing the rally. And that happens from time to time, and that's just really what we call the sell walls, right? And you see it on the buy side, where prices start to drop, and then all of a sudden you see this huge order hit the books, and it's like 40 Bitcoin worth of this small token, and then the token just stops dropping. But that one is not as believable as a sell wall, right? Because a buy wall, anybody can say, I'm going to go buy 100 Bitcoins worth of this coin and then just cancel the order. On the sell side, I mean, they have the tokens, so they could dump it if they want to, right?
Sure.
But, it's just kind of an interesting point to see, but it's certainly not a trading strategy or an indicator.
Or something you really need to worry about and use.
Generally speaking, no, but it is interesting to see when some of these big coins, before they've had the big run, you get these huge sell walls that are just keeping the prices in check before they actually start to run.
Okay. Well, listen, I know everybody is, and who would have ever thought Ripple would have hit almost 90 cents? I mean, unbelievable. And same with NEM. I think NEM right now is up to 70 cents.
Yeah. And so NEM is a big mover, and when it has those moves, it really can get going. And so here's the thing with NEM, right, is versus Bitcoin, it's just had this huge decline, right? It's just drop, and it came down to, I think, 20 cents or so. And then it just started to sit tight in November versus Bitcoin. It stopped dropping. And so as the price of Bitcoin doubled and did whatever it did, NEM benefited from that, right? It was keeping pace with Bitcoin. And then it just had this huge move. And the volume on this move was explosive. I mean, just look at the volume. We've had some big volume moves in NEM, but this dwarfs them by far, right? And then it had the big sell-off, but it's still sitting tight. And I think you got to pay attention to NEM. It's just turning the corner here finally versus BTC. It's maintained its position at the top of the market cap list. I know that's because of big supply, but it's just there. And the project is making some changes, and they're doing some good things.
Yeah, we love NEM, and they're part of Asia. I mean, that's a big thing over there, and they support the coins and tokens they like.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And so, if they can gain some traction, they're doing some more marketing and doing some things there that maybe NEM is going to be one of those names that has another big move. And it seems like we're getting the big cap names really moving, right? It just they're cycling through. You saw Ripple, and then you saw Litecoin, and
it's just
Yoda.
crazy.
Cardano was already a $2 billion name, and they pumped the heck out of it, and it went to 11, 12 billion, right? It was just, it's amazing.
Well, flip over to Ripple real quick and give us your opinion.
So let's take a look at Ripple here. Let me do Ripple USD first. And actually, I'll go on. So here's the latest chart, right? And that's what you're talking about. We see with that big breakout. And basically in 3 days, I went from 24 cents to over 80 cents before pausing. And right now, that's all it's doing is it pausing. It's not a big crash or collapse. It's just a normal, consolidation after a huge volume run. You can see the red bars here, the sell side. It's not, anything scary. It's just normal pullback. And so as long as it continues to do this constructively, it's still looking good. It's letting the moving average catch up. And that's just normal action. If we zoom in a little bit on the 4-hour charts, you can see how tight that chart's getting. It's just really starting to tighten up here. So I'd be watching this. We could potentially have another pop on this one. But this is going to be one of those next move wins, right? If it has a big break, then you can see a lot of sellers stepping in there.
Yeah.
So what would, obviously, if that coin got added to Coinbase, that definitely would make an impact on its future too. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think any coin that gets added to Coinbase is going to have that initial pop and probably more of a longer-term bullish scenario to a point, right? Right now, there's the big three, and it was like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and when they added Litecoin, that was a big deal. Eventually, they're going to get to the point where they have 6, 8, 10 coins, and every new coin they add is going to be less of a hype, right? Just because it's going to become more of a normal exchange at that point. But the initial coins, yeah. So the next 2 or 3 that they add, I think will have a very
big impact,
beneficial impact.
Okay, look at that chart once more. You got the tightening up, and the volume is decreased. What would you suggest for that coin at this point, looking at that?
And so once it's had a big run like this, right, I tend to take the more conservative route. And this is different. There's a difference between trading and long-term holding, right? If you're buying a long-term buy, you kind of just look for these pauses and you start accumulating. You look for dips, you accumulate. But if you're trading and doing some more of the shorter-term gains, I tend to wait for a breakout signal. And so I would personally wait for this to turn the corner and break above this downtrend and show that the downtrend is broken, and then hop on there, especially if volume starts to come in and when it pops to the upside. Because this could just continue drifting lower and then have a little bit of a fall off. And you can see it on the daily chart, even if it dropped, down to these levels on the daily chart, technically speaking, it wouldn't really be that big of a deal. But percent-wise, that's another 15 to 20% to the downside. And it could do that and still be just fine, right? So it just depends on your strategy, right? If you're more of a longer term holder, you're looking for those dips, you want to buy on something like that, versus if you're trading, you're kind of going with the momentum, so you're kind of looking more for the pop to the upside.
Sure, I get it. Okay. Well, listen, we got 1 or 2 coins we'd like to throw at you, but what are a couple of your long shots that you see?
Well, you're gonna throw coins at me. Let me give you my wallet address. I'd be happy to just throw any coin you want.
Whatever.
Oh, just kidding. Let me see here. What coins are they? I'll give you my long shots. Go ahead and give me yours first.
Well, in the top 100 coins, it looks like there's a couple of them that have been doing pretty good as far as percentage-wise of increasing. What were those, Rod?
Dent.
It's
Dent coin?
Yeah, Dent coin.
It's not. What's the ticker? I know it's not DNT. That's district.
It's let me see.
You'll find it on
DENT. Yeah, it's DENT.
It is DENT. Okay.
Yeah, Dent. And then it's been up. It's been up 54.44%.
High BTC.
Well, now that we look at it at your chart, it's just now made that impact, huh?
Yeah, it's huge. And the thing with, let me see, what's the market on this? Yeah, that's the thing. It's like Ether Delta and high BTC, and it's not as accessible as some of the others, right? With coins being like on Bittrex or Binance or something like that.
All right, let's go over your coins.
This one, no, there's no doubt though. This one has had a big run, and I've had quite a few people, kind of saying, "Hey, look at Dent and check this one out." And yeah,
But it's just
you
been
can't argue with that.
recent.
Yeah, it's very recent, right? It's had a very recent jump here, and it's a good move. You can't argue with that. What are some of the other ones you guys like?
Dragon chain.
Oh yeah, Dragon. I think that's Dragon Chain.
Yeah, DRAGONCHIN.
DRGN, yeah.
Yeah,
That one's
that's
also
it.
on Ether Delta. And so that's probably why it's not coming up on Coinage. I don't think they have the API link to Ether Delta.
Okay.
But yeah, so this one too. And if you look at the business model behind this, it's pretty interesting. It's kind of one of those crowdfunding type of plays where you can invest in projects and get the tokens, the Dragon tokens, and kind of benefit from those projects. And I know they had some ties, they were saying, with Disney and some of that. And from a market cap perspective, it's had a huge run already, but it's still relatively small. $176 million in this market cap, in these days is not
It's
a big
nothing,
market
yeah.
cap.
Very
No.
small.
Can certainly keep going, and it's just been super strong. And right now it's consolidating. In the last day or so, it's kind of putting this little cup here, which is good.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's maybe setting up for another leg, and especially if it starts to get more attention. The thing with this one too, though, it's just not as accessible right now. It's only on Ether Delta.
Yeah.
And so,
All right, I got one for you. EOS.
oh, EOS. Man, EOS has really surprised everybody in the last couple of months, just with how strong it's been off the lows. It literally it found its bottom and decided just to start marching along. And look at this daily chart. It bottomed out in October. And the thing with EOS was it had a lot of headwinds for so long because they were just releasing so much supply of coin. They have this very unique, drawn out ICO where they just continue to sell tokens and it's still going. But they are, releasing a test net. They've been making some gains on their actual development and project. And I think it finally reached the point where it was just so low versus maybe the potential long-term value that people started to turn around. And the telltale was the volume. I mean, it turned around with just massive volume here at the lows. And that's big buyers stepping in and saying, I'm going to start picking it up here. And so you saw that happen, and it paused, and it's just stair-stepping right now. And if EOS is like another one like Cardano, right? If they really do what they say they're going to do, or even a fraction of what they say they're going to do, it's going to be huge because, they want to be like the operating system of the blockchain world. And if they can pull it off, they really will rival Ethereum. And so it's one to keep an eye on. It's come a long ways, but market cap perspective wise, it's still down at around not even $5 billion. And so if it's going to be a big platform, like they say it's going to be,
It's got to grow.
it's got a lot of space to go at the top side, right? It's got room.
Very good.
Cool.
Thank you.
But, it's just marching along. And this is one of those, the trend is your friend until this changes. I mean, it's still going. It just gives you these little pauses, and, it just looks very strong. All the bullish action, you see the volume, just a ton of buy volume.
Well, you're mentioning all the time that you like to see it have a buy and then kind of settle out, and then another buy and then settle out. And this seems to match that trend you're talking about.
Yeah, it really does. And if you look at the BTC side, it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So here's versus Bitcoin, but it's still very strong.
Yeah.
And so you saw this little breakdown here. This is where Bitcoin kind of broke out, and then, this is where Bitcoin sold off, and EOS and everything else kind of panicked for a day or two. And then it found this low point, and it just reversed course and just popped. And right now it's pulling back a little bit, and it's touching these moving averages. And these are nice secondary entry points when you see these little dips, as opposed to chasing, the big pops.
Cool.
Okay, what are you keeping your eye on?
So let's go to the coin market cap, right? Something that hasn't run already, which is far and few between these days. Bitcoin, we talked. I think Bitcoin's just crazy strong still. $327 billion market cap. Ethereum is going to be around. Bitcoin Cash, I think you guys got to keep an eye on. I know it from the
Well,
Bitcoin maximalists.
Mr. Node, we've done a couple videos really slamming that Bitcoin cash.
Everybody has, right? And that's the whole point. Is there is just so much bias against it, and understandably so. Believe me, I'm with you. But the
Proof is in the pudding.
but the potential for it to gain market share is still there, I think. And I think that, and I'm not one, politically speaking, I'm not one, for it or against it or whatever. I'm just trying to keep an open mind. I don't like a lot of what they've done and how they've approached certain things. So let me just be clear about that. But if it gets added to Coinbase, and if it starts to get any side of, sort of user, traction there, and if more exchanges start to list BCH pairs as alternatives to BTC pairs, I think you're going to start to see more action coming into this thing. And right now it's valued at about 1/10 of Bitcoin. And so even if it moves up to 20% of Bitcoin, that's huge, right? You can see basically $3,400, $4,000 Bitcoin cash next year. And so I think 2018, you probably will see, higher valuations in Bitcoin Cash. And so I'm keeping an eye on it. I think it's just one to be watching, and it's just been very strong as of late. And for a while, it was kind of the anti-Bitcoin. Every time Bitcoin would pull in, this thing would pop, and vice versa. And that just kind of shifted here recently, where it's acting a little bit more like a normal altcoin, where they kind of move all in that same sentiment. But it's still bullish. I mean, the chart, if you just look at the chart itself, it's still bullish, and it's kind of building momentum. So that's one I'm watching. We've covered Ripple, Litecoin, Cardano's definitely one to watch. IOTA, it's going to go either way, right? The whole tangle, they've got a lot to prove, the development there. And it's
very exciting, some of that stuff.
Yeah, and if they pull it off, right, it's going to be huge.
Right.
And if they don't, it's going to be this epic failure, and people are going to say it didn't work. And so this one could go either way next year, I think. Dash, oh man, Dash. I wish I would have bought more Dash.
I know. I can't believe it went up so strong.
I keep thinking Dash is going to be one that gets added to Coinbase. And I've been pretty bullish on Dash for a little while, but I remember seeing a video when I first got into Dash, and they were talking about Dash. One of the founders was talking about Dash being $1,000, and at the time it was like $50. And I thought, I don't know about 1,000, but I can see a couple hundred. And it's like I probably should have bought a lot more Dash there.
Yeah,
but it's been a good one. I think it's going to continue to remain strong. We talked NEM. If they're a good platform. EOS, Neo, I'm still a huge fan of Neo.
Right.
We're going to see triple-digit Neo in 2018. Maybe before then, the way this market's going. But I'm still holding some Neo. I'm still, very much watching this and keeping an eye on it and trading it and all that fun stuff. So I think Neo is still a contender for one of the top platforms out there. And the thing with Neo and some of the other names like Quantum and Omise Go, if China reverses course or even becomes somewhat open or accepting to crypto and exchanges and all that, right? And kind of the whole thing they did in September and banning some of the exchanges and all that. If that even just the rumor of it starts to really gain traction, you're going to see names like Neo and Quantum and Omise Go really start to get some momentum going. And so that's the other thing I'm keeping an eye on. But even that aside, it's just a good project, and they're just doing some good things, and it's still, they got a good team. So I'm really liking that one. EOS we talked about, right? Maybe one to come up. Tron, another one. That's China, that's Asia. It's entertainment on the blockchain, content type stuff. And that one's just had a crazy run here lately. If you look at Tron, let's look at Tron on Binance. I think it's TRX. Yeah. And so you can see how big of a move it's had here.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah, so Tron, it's another one that I'm watching. And then if kind of going down the list here, the lower cap names, I'm still a big fan of Zcash, holding some of those. I think some of the privacy coins are still going to be good. And then some of the smaller platforms are potentials that I'm liking, right? So ARC, Decred is some names that I've kind of just held longer term. And so those are what I'm looking at right now. And then there's just always new names coming on the scene, right? We saw Power Ledger a couple of weeks ago, and I think Basic Attention Token has some potential, right? The developer or the creator of JavaScript, the programming language, this is his token, right? He created the Brave browser, and now he's got this Basic Attention Token, and just a super smart guy. And just you got to keep an eye on this one, I think.
Okay. Yeah, we've talked about BAT before.
Yeah, and just the idea, the concept of it, and the decentralized nature of it is just very attractive.
Yeah, it is.
Mr. No, this has been such an honor to have you again. We appreciate your time, especially on a Sunday like this.
Oh, it's always a blast hanging out with you guys.
Well, thank you. It's always a blast hanging around you.
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Been good. Well, we'll do this again when Bitcoin hits 50 grand or something.
Hey, we're gonna have a big party when that happens.
I'll say. All
We'll
right,
even have a bigger one once it reaches 100 grand.
Oh man!
Thank you so much.
I hear sometimes on the YouTube that some guys are predicting it's going to hit 1 million. Who knows?
Man. Who knows at that point, right?
Yeah.